Santa Fe's Valley Division is the westernmost portion of the railroad's main line from the Bay Area to Chicago. While the Southern Pacific Railroad controlled the bulk of the freight traffic within the state of California, the Santa Fe was still able to put a dent into their revenue with their fast running between the San Francisco Bay Area and Los Angeles. From the Super 8mm movie cameras of 4 different rail fans, we will follow the main line of the Santa Fe from Richmond and across the Sacramento River Delta region over to Stockton in the San Joaquin Valley, with views of freight and Amtrak operations from 1974 up until the breakup of the attempted SP Santa Fe merger in 1987. Train 973 prepares to depart Richmond for Kansas City. On the point of this train is a freshly rebuilt GP35, now being designated as a GP35U. In 1983, the Santa Fe and the Southern Pacific merged their assets together to form one big super system on the West Coast. So sure were both companies of their ultimate success that they began painting their locomotives into this bright red and yellow paint scheme. This ended up being dubbed the Kodachrome scheme by rail fans, as their colors resembled the boxes of Kodak slide film. The ICC would turn down the two railroads' attempt to merge in 1986, and an appeal was rejected again in 1987. The Oakland local prepares to depart Richmond for Oakland. After abandonment of the Oakland district, Santa Fe trains operated via yard trackage to Stige and then via the SP to Oakland to service their customers in that area. A westbound SP freight ducks under the Santa Fe as it makes its way through Richmond on the Cal P. The Richmond Road Switcher rolls over the SP as it arrives back into Richmond. The train would generally operate 6 days a week and would switch 2 industries just east of Collier and would occasionally go to Pittsburgh. A Kodachrome U36C and SD45 lead a westbound past San Pablo as they approach the SP flyover into Richmond. A westbound crosses Giant Highway near the east switch of reamed siding. An SD40-2 leads this westbound under the cantilever and past the west switch of the siding at Ream. A westbound led by a U36C passes the sidings for Bethlehem Steel. This area is now known as North Bay on the BNSF and serves as a major TOFC loading and unloading facility for the region. A westbound with GE and EMD power rolls past the east switch of the siding at Gately. This location is very popular for rail fans as the Santa Fe Valley Division and Southern Pacific Cal-P lines parallel through this area and come within view of each other. Kodachrome Power leads this westbound through Gately. A Kodachrome FP45 leads this westbound past the west switch of Gately siding. A westbound passes the second Santa Fe Pinole Depot, which was constructed in 1945 and torn down by BNSF in 1998. Another westbound swiftly makes its way through Pinole with a GP35U on the point. An SD40-2 leads this westbound through Pinole. This cut was made to bypass tunnel number 4 in 1939. The Richmond Road Switcher rolls through Pinole heading east. An SD40-2 is on the point of this eastbound as it approaches Collier. Eastbound train 991 from Richmond to Chicago and its counterpart train 199 were the two hottest trains on the Santa Fe. A Kodachrome B36-7 is in charge of the eastbound through Collier on this day. An eastbound passes the lead off of the main for the Collier Carbon and Chemical Corporation Contra Costa Carbon Plant. A GP35U is on the point of the Richmond Road Switcher as it accelerates east out of Collier. A westbound rolls through Collier, led by another GP35U. A westbound led by a GP35U rolls through the siding at Collier. The Richmond Road Switcher arrives into Collier to pick up loads and spot empties at the carbon plant. The power runs down the lead to grab the loaded hopper spotted at the carbon plant. The power comes back with 10 outbound loads and returns them to their consists spotted on the main. The power heads back down with empties and retrieves another 4 loads before returning to Richmond. A westbound rolls into the siding at Collier for a meet with eastbound train 991. Two GP30s are on the Richmond Road Switcher as they run around their consist of empties for Collier at Christie. An eastbound led by an SD45U meets a westbound in the siding at Christie. The westbound notches out of Christie, with the lead unit being the only one not in Kodachrome in this consist. Westbound rolls through Christie with an SD45U and Kodachrome F45 for power. The Richmond Road Switcher runs around its consist of empties for Collier at Christie. The siding at Christie was fitted with spring switches, and after realigning the west end for the main, the train heads west for Collier. A caboose hop with 9 units heads east through Christie. Kodachrome power is on the point of this westbound as it slows into Christie for a meet, holding the main with the eastbound taking the siding. Kodachrome power is also leading the eastbound as it takes the siding for the meet. westbound notches up and out of Christie before the caboose even clears the view of the head and crew. The eastbound is still in the siding as the westbound continues toward Richmond. An SD45U leads this westbound past the east end of Christie siding. An eastbound led by a GP30U rolls through Christie. Another eastbound led by a GP35U approaches Tunnel 3 after rolling through Christie. A westbound led by an SD40-2 emerges out of Tunnel 3 and rolls around the curve into Christie with a GP9 third out in the consist. On the other side of Tunnel 3 is Glen Fraser, and this eastbound led by an SD45U rolls past the siding and under the cantilever. A westbound rolls through Glen Fraser led by a trio of GP35Us. Another westbound makes its way through Glen Fraser, led by 4 and 6 axle EMD power. Kodachrome SF30C 9518 leads a westbound through Glen Fraser and into Tunnel 3. On the other side of Tunnel 2 is Alhambra Valley Trestle, which dominates the landscape in this area. Train 199 rolls onto the trestle and approaches Tunnel 2 heading west. Tunnel number 1 is located on the other side of the Alhambra Valley Trestle at Muir. A trio of jeeps exit on the point of a westbound. The three units are doubling their consist as they roll east over the Alhambra Valley Trestle to retrieve the other half of their train. The units head back west with the rest of their train. A westbound approaches and slowly makes its way through tunnel number 1. C30-7 leads this westbound near Malt. Eastbound train 991 to Chicago meets westbound train 849 at Malt B. 849 continues its trip west. A westbound rolls through Malt B led by a Kodachrome SF30C. Kodachrome SD39 leads another westbound through Malt B. On March 5, 1974, Amtrak started their San Joaquin service between Oakland and Bakersfield with 2 trains numbered 710 and 711. San Joaquin train 711 slowly rolls into Port Chicago for a crew change behind a pair of former SP FP7s now owned by Amtrak. Number 6455 became Amtrak 118 and remained in scarlet and gray until it was retired in March of 1976. Crew changes on Amtrak trains in Port Chicago were common, as during the early days of the National Rail passenger carrier, the trains were operated by crews of the host railroads. This practice was eliminated in the spring of 1980. Amtrak's route for the new San Joaquin service had the trains taking the SP out of Oakland to Port Chicago and then continuing on the Santa Fe towards Bakersfield, a practice that continues to this day. The pair of former SP FP7s on this train 710 have been painted into Amtrak Phase 1, and with the Santa Fe crew on board, the consist continues toward Bakersfield. Train 711 rolls into Port Chicago for a crew change as a freight makes its way east on the SP Makoko line. Train 711 departs Port Chicago and will continue to Oakland on the SP. The F-40PH and Amfleet equipment came to the San Joaquin service in October of 1976. A consist of this new equipment makes up Train 710 as it switches off of the SP at Port Chicago. Eastbound San Joaquin train 708 slows into Port Chicago on the SP Makoko line to switch over to the Santa Fe. The fireman gets out to throw the switch for the connection from the SP over to the Santa Fe. Once the train is clear of the switch, the rear brakeman lines it back for the main. .708 comes off of the connection track and onto the Santa Fe at Port Chicago siding. The monotonous task of hand-throwing switches to get trains over from the SP to the Santa Fe was eliminated with the installation of CTC in this area in 1988. The consist makes its way onto the main as it rolls through the spring switch at the east end of the siding, continuing toward Bakersfield. Kodachrome Power leads train 199 west through Port Chicago. In 1977, Canadian Pacific Royal Hudson 2860 made a visit to California to celebrate the 25th anniversary of Queen Elizabeth II's reign in England. The train slows into Port Chicago on the SP, where it will switch over to the Santa Fe to head east toward Stockton. Just east of Port Chicago is Nichols, and Amtrak 710 passes through with an SDP-40F for power. A pair of GP35s lead a short westbound through Nichols just ahead of Amtrak 711 with another SDP-40F. An F40 leads number 710 through Nichols. The Royal Hudson blasts through Nichols, continuing toward Stockton. An SD-45U and F-45 are on the point of this westbound through Nichols. San Joaquin Train 710 rolls over the SP Makoko line on the flyover at Nichols. A GP30 leads this short eastbound through Nichols. The stacks of the large PG&E power plant are a prominent backdrop as this westbound rolls through Pittsburgh. A westbound rolls through Pittsburgh on the siding, rejoining the main as it continues toward Richmond. Santa Fe's Pittsburgh Depot still stands and remains in service as office space for BNSF. A westbound rolls past the depot. Kodachrome power curves into Pittsburgh on the point of a westbound. Just east of Pittsburgh is Antioch, and Amtrak 710 makes its way past the depot with an F40 and Amfleet equipment. Two FP7s lead Amtrak 711 west off of the bridge at Antioch. A pair of GP35s are running light through Antioch heading east. Western Pacific's Sacramento Northern Detour steel train makes its way east through Antioch heading back to Stockton. WP's trackage rights on the Santa Fe to Pittsburgh from Stockton began in 1951 following the collapse of the Lisbon trestle under the weight of one of these trains. The SN Steel train heads east through Antioch with freshly painted Rock Island bankruptcy blue boxcars just ahead of the caboose. A Kodachrome FP45 leads this short westbound off of the bridge at Antioch. The Pittsburgh Road Switcher rolls over the bridge at Antioch heading east with a single Jeep running long hood forward bound for work at East Antioch Yard. A pair of Kodachrome C30-7s lead a westbound through Antioch. The steel train heads east through Holt. West of Gillis, a westbound heads toward Richmond with a pair of GP35s and a CF7 third out in the consist. Santa Fe's Stockton Depot opened in 1900 and is still in service today for Amtrak San Joaquin trains. Two former SP FP7s arrive and depart on the point of train 711. Loads of steel coil for Pittsburgh make their way past the Stockton Depot behind a WP GP20. Just east of the Santa Fe Depot, the Southern Pacific San Joaquin Line and the Western Pacific Main Line cross the Valley Division at Stockton Tower. SP and WP freights cross the Santa Fe Main Line heading for Roseville and Sacramento. A Santa Fe SSB 1200 runs light out of Mormon Yard just east of Stockton Tower. An evening arrival of San Joaquin Train 711 rounds out this look at the Santa Fe Valley Division from Richmond to Stockton.